Sorry. Now we are. Hey, everybody. We are finally here and started up. We are so glad that you are with us today. Welcome, everyone, to the July meeting of the Board of Directors of Creating the Future. Creating the Future envisions communities where people are living well individually and collectively. And so that to make that happen, to make sure that that is a possibility, our 10-year mission is to change the questions embedded in the day-to-day work of individuals and organizations so that everyone naturally brings out the best in each other and in our world. So that seems like a pretty good place to start. We welcome our board members, Hildy, Dimitri, Candice, Deborah, Justin, and Carl today, and soon to be joined, we believe, by Mark Riffey. And anyone who is there watching us via the Creating the Future Walking the Talk blog and hopefully participating with us via Twitter. If you are watching and would like to offer comments, questions, ideas, and suggestions, and you are so welcome to do that, you can do it using the hashtag CTFuture, CTFuture, and we really do welcome your input. As we always begin our meeting, we'll start with a round of introductions and then ask folks to describe what has been awesome and inspiring you in the last month since we were together in June. And anybody who wants to start can go right ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Not particularly awesome, but someone has to go first. Two things. I missed the board meeting last month because it was NCVO's annual sort of conference type thing, which was about 1,000 people over the course of a couple of days, which all went really well. Really hard work, but had a great time, did great stuff. So that was my first awesome, and then my second awesome is that I finally have managed to get our solar panels registered with the relevant authorities and so on working now, so I'm hopefully days away from my first check. So we're actually saving the planet from now on.
Oh. Saving the planet and making money.
So Carl, you make the second. So Carl, I'm here. I also am solar up as of about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, this sounds a little bit sad, and I probably shouldn't be admitting this in public, but it's a great amount of fun sitting in front of the electricity meter underneath the stairs, watching it go backwards every now and then.
We're going to call upon that image from now on to calm you down.
Yeah.
Carl's happy place.
Sorry, and less awesome, I'm afraid I will have to leave a bit early today, probably about 7:15. So about an hour and 5 minutes, I'm afraid.
Okay. Thank you. Next. And if you can say your name and where you are, that would be great too.
I'll go. This is Justin Pollock, board member Washington, D.C. And my awesome is actually going to happen in 3 days when I get to go up to watch our board chair facilitate the PANO board meeting. So that's my awesome. we could share awesomes.
I'm so jealous to be in a room with the two of you. Just is like and with all of our fellows at PANO. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's gonna rock.
Yep.
Definitely. Well,
next.
I'll go ahead and go and use the. First of all, I'm Dimitri Petropoulos. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, co-founder of Creating the Future, and my awesome is I'm in Tucson, Arizona. And last night, I know that recently Candice was talking about having experienced a monsoon. Yesterday was really the monsoon. That was a more typical monsoon where the storm comes in, it's literally over the top of your head, there's lightning everywhere, the ground's rumbling, and then the storm just goes around and around the town. And it comes and leaves and comes back and leaves and comes back, and there's huge amounts of water. And then the whole thing goes away and the clouds clear.
And it's cool.
And it's cool, and it's really nice, and it just reminds me what's so beautiful about being here. So my awesome is that we had our first real monsoon storm of the season.
Yeah. Tucson in the summer is just. People think people either hate it here in the summer or love it here in the summer, and it is just so awesome. Yeah.
So I took your awesomes away, probably.
No, it's fine.
Do you have another one?
Go get
more.
I'm Candace Graham. I'm the operations coordinator at Creating the Future here in Tucson. The monsoon was pretty awesome. I forgot what rain smelled like. I just moved here from Minnesota, so it was nice to have some moisture in the air. But another awesome from this month is I spent the weekend in Del Mar over the 4th of July and hung out at the ocean, so I'm still kind of riding that wave, literally. And then, yeah, just seeing all the different types of summertime activities here in Arizona, from like hiking and running to sitting outside your front porch and just watching it rain, because it's not going to happen very often after this season.
Yeah, we actually do that. You will absolutely find your neighbors when it rains. Everybody's on their porch watching the rain come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Hildy? What's your awesome?
I am Hilda Gottlieb with Creating the Future, and every moment of every day is awesome. I'm on sabbatical, and my head is popping and exploding from 5:30 in the morning till the time I finally can drink enough wine to go to bed at night. So it's just, yeah, it's great.
And Deborah.
I'm Deborah. I'm located in Laramie, Wyoming, and I'm the board documentarian for the meeting. My awesome is that I just wrapped up my latest run of the course that I teach for Duquesne University, Governing for Community and Organizational Leadership. And it's a very small group, but a very committed group, and we had a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
I love
Very cool.
That's great, Deborah.
Yeah.
Deborah, we're going to have to compare curricula as I work on developing a piece for local change makers here.
Well, I love the topic, and I'm an adult educator by training, so yeah, would love to chat with you. So
You're an adult educator by passion.
that too. I have credential too, so.
And a very generous one, might I add. When I was teaching a short course, you were so helpful to me, Deborah, in getting some of the materials prepped and just being clear about what the excuse me, what the learning objectives were. It was really helpful. Okay, I guess that leaves me up, eh? And of course, my awesome is that I'm going to be with all of the panel folks this week, and Justin, and he thinks he's just going to be watching, but he's not really just going to be watching. There's lots to do, and the board are working on some really neat stuff. They have some great conversations ahead of them, and I think that the more hands on deck, the better for a conversation that's going to help them really move the organization in new directions. And so they're pretty excited, and the executive director is very excited, and so we're going to have a good time on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I am so excited for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to see what comes out of
I
that.
know. There's such, you don't often enter a situation that has so much potential, both from where they are now. I mean, you've got the hindsight to have worked with them in the past and just watched with the progression. And so it's just, I'm really excited for you and for them and for what's going to come out of this. It's really amazing.
I can't think of many situations, maybe I'm wrong, but it's not been in my experience, where it's like there's this entire set of bleachers filled with people cheering for an organization who are doing really interesting things to consider where they are and where they want to be. And PANO is just, it's unique in that way. There's just so many people.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So we have thought about awesome in terms of us, But one of our board members who took their leave, and Dimitri, if you wouldn't mind also keeping us posted about who you see in the Twitter stream, that would be great. And once again, just to say to people who might be observing or watching, you're very, very welcome to participate. Don't be shy. We're pretty laid back group, as you can tell. And,
we do better when you're participating.
Yeah.
We are better when we are bigger and more inclusive. And so if you are watching, just say hello, tweet to us, and tell us that you're there, and tell us what's been awesome in your life for the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention that some guy named Justin Pollock retweeted. So shout out to him.
Well, and one of the neat things that happened the other day when we were having the engagement meeting was that someone who was watching started to participate just towards the end of the conversation, and it turned out that this individual lived in a community where one of the people who was in the meeting lived, and so she checked him out, and oh yeah, you live where I live. Hopefully we'll have a chance to meet in person sometime. So you never know what's possible, and we just wanted to say we're very, very happy that you're here, even if it's just to watch.
Yep.
So we want to, because we operate in a virtual space, there's so little chance for us to do things that are tangible, that you can actually feel. And with the departure of one of our board members, Alexandra Peters, we haven't been able to do what is traditionally a way of recognizing someone's contributions, which is either to have a meeting, have an event, have a lunch, have a dinner, send them flowers. And so one of the ideas that came up when Hildy and I were talking last week was, what if we were to say whatever the words are, and there's not many of us who know her so directly, but even still, it's possible to, because this is being recorded, take some of the comments that we make and edit them into a short video so that we can share that with Alexandra as a sort of e-card. And so I thought perhaps it would be a good idea for us to do a quick go-around and just offer best wishes, even if not comments, about the kinds of things that we know and value about what Alexandra has made possible in creating the future. So why don't we begin with whoever wants to start? And I'm suspecting, Hildy and Dimitri, that there's lots that you would want to say.
I will happily start because Alexandra has been a force in my thinking, and especially in the early days. It's why she is one of the first 2 board members that we invited, because we wanted, as you guys already know, we wanted people who were going to push our thinking. Unlike many founding boards where what they want is people who will just nod and say yes and go along and do. Alexandra has always pushed my thinking, and that is of such huge value to me personally, but has always been a grounding place for this board. Alexandra was always the first one to say, I'm not so sure I agree with that. And I can hear her voice saying it and missing that immensely. So I'll start with that.
And I want to add to that, and Hildy will tell you that this happened frequently. When Alexandra was pushing the thinking, she would write these long, thoughtful, provocative emails. And I remember those emails coming in, and it was like, oh my God, it's the next chapter of this amazing book that I've been reading. I can't wait.
One of us would say, oh, there's an email from Alexandra.
and as funny as that sounds, it really was that influential and that thought-provoking. That when the emails would come in, we would really sit down and have a long discussion around the points and the things that she was making. And she also made clear that she had never encountered the opportunity to express herself like this about those things. So it was kind of a mutual, she could take that intellect, which is pretty formidable, and her life experience, which was amazing, and apply it towards something that we were sort of feeling out, trying to explore the world. So it was amazing, and I know that whatever she does, and I know she's writing a book right now, applying all of that will be powerful, and I can't wait to read the book.
Shall I? Well, Alexandra Peters was the only reason that I joined this board, folks, so that's me. Hildy actually stole my thunder. My big recollection about Alexandra's contribution as a board member is that she was never frightened of disagreeing with something that I said. So, that doesn't come easy to some board members. I don't specifically mean creating the future board members, but on the other boards that I'm on, it doesn't come easy to everybody. And being able to disagree in a really respectful but positive way is a rare skill, and I commend Alexandra for that. Also, I'm really going to miss Alexandra on a personal level because I've often felt like she's my representative in Planet North America on this board, because I know she has a family over here in the UK, and I know she travels to Europe quite frequently. So, Alexandra, I'm going to miss you.
Absolutely.
So I didn't overlap with Alexandra much, but when I heard her talk about writing her book, it did help clarify some things for me in just listening to her, which I think Hildy touched on, and also Dimitri touched on, which is the arc. The thought, our conversations and our thoughts couldn't. They had to fit into an arc. She wouldn't allow for us to like a thematic arc. She wouldn't allow us to sort of stray or go way out there and without bringing us back in to say, wait, it's got to fit. We can push it. We can push the envelope, but it's got to make sense and fit. And so I think just in my brief window, that's what I took away from Alexandra. So thank you.
Very astute.
Beautiful. Well, there's so many little pieces that fit everything you've just said. I remember thinking back to those philanthropy conversations that we had about a year or two ago. I can't remember exactly when they were. But I remember Alexandra making a point of saying she completely shifted the way we were thinking when we were talking about philanthropy as the perspective of donation. And she moved us into, but this is what it looks like from the perspective of the people who are being asked. And what does it make possible if we shift the way we think about them? And when you did that, Alexandra, I think it really changed the nature of the dialogue, because, and it's a great example of the kind of contribution you've kept making over and over again, because you really helped us to look at things from many different points of view, and we started to cultivate that actively. You also so kindly said you taught us about the beavers in your pond. So it was like from the sublime to the sublime, really, because we saw that everything excites you, everything fascinates you, and when you described that, even it felt like that we were all there with you, but also that everything could be seen as a miracle. From the beavers on, and so your voice was so missed, and I seriously carried the belief that our first board chair was going to be you, and even though you have big shoes that we all have to fill, and we will do the best we can to live up to what's the standard that you set as the inaugural board member.
Here, here.
Absolutely.
Here's to Alexandra.
There you go. Oops, my cup a little close there. So Dimitri, you can take all of what we've done and put it all together into a thing.
I could have shooting flames and all kinds of other visual elements to show how much we appreciate her.
Thank you. Flames, okay. Deborah, was there something, did you want to add anything? Did you have a chance to, Alexandra?
Yeah, I know Alexandra. I didn't really have a chance to work with her within the context of the board, but she's always been kind of one of those valued governance peers who always had some wisdom to share that always informs my thinking and pushes me to think about things. So just within that context, she's one of those people I value in terms of wisdom about governance.
What a great legacy. Mm-hmm.
I said hello and goodbye to Alexandra when I met her, so, but I'm very excited for her book. So good luck with that.
Yeah, and we want to read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Yahoo! All right.
I just wanted to add that Annette Sandberg is watching, and she's excited and looking forward to hear more about the community impact plan. So,
yay.
Hi.
Hi, Annette.
Glad you're here.
Annette is from Pennsylvania. We met her at the panel conference, and she's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so if we'll hear Annette. Please keep chiming in with us. That would be great.
Also, Susan Detweiler.
Hello, Susan.
Susan. She's in Hildy. Where is Susan?
Delaware.
Delaware. Great.
And I'm assuming this is her awesome. To recognize the potential of this amazing enterprise was an awesome responsibility. Thank you for jumping in at the start. And so
that's
she's
from Alexandra.
That's for Alexandra. So
Nice.
repeat that. To recognize the potential of this amazing enterprise was an awesome responsibility. Thank you for jumping in at the start.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Susan. So, you ready now?
Go.
Okay. Oh dear. Can somebody take over chairing for me for a couple of seconds? I have to excuse myself.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'll jump in while you're addressing these issues. Justin, do you want to jump in here? Because the three of us had that conversation, and I'm still in sabbatical head.
In terms of
Setting the stage for this conversation.
setting the stage for this conversation. Yeah, so I think Hildy touched on a few things in her report to the board and I think as Gail and Hildy and I talked, we were really looking at what is it going to take and how do we really structure around us as a board being able to embody the planning work that we so desperately, I think, have talked about needing, as well as many of us try to live every day in a lot of the work that we're doing with other organizations. And so it was very clear that much of the components that have been coming up in the last board meeting were coming back to having a plan, and both the deliberateness of us creating that plan, but also the necessity of having the plan in order to be responsive in the way that we were starting to construct both the responsive nature of our board and the governance nature of our board. And so, just to give a little bit of context, Hildy shared with us that while we were talking about a plan, there was a plan that was being worked that had existed from the beginning of this journey. And so we all agreed that it would probably be a good idea to share that plan, which was what was in Hildy's presentation to us, so that we had a sense that I think for some of us it was feeling like, oh, okay, we aren't feeling like we're sort of out here in the ether without a plan, a bit more responsive to that piece. But then also to really think that we are at a point now where the organization and we as the leadership of the organization need to come into a space where we can own a plan for the organization, and that we can be the responsive party for creating that and then being the shepherds of it as it's playing out. Is that fair? Fair representation?
I think so. One of the things that's coming up for me as you're talking, bringing me back into the present, is that I have, and you guys have heard me say this a lot, and more, I'm saying it recently, and I'm going to be saying it a lot more. We need desperately to Hildy and Dimitri proof this organization. The more we go back on the road and start traveling, the more the reality is that none of us, we're all mortal and we never know when our time is going to come. And I walk out across the street tomorrow and get hit by a meteor. All this dying in my head does nobody any good. And you said it really well, Justin, that it doesn't matter, really, in my mind, it doesn't matter if there's a plan if we don't all own it. And if the only people that know there's a plan is me and Dimitri, then that doesn't do anybody any good. And so
unless it's a secret plan.
It's a secret plan. Yeah, we can't tell you, or we'd have to shoot you, and then you'd be dead, and we'd So the big pieces for me are we did really phase 1 of the plan with a little bit of phase 2. Knowing what the business model was, knowing who all of the various audiences were that we needed to engage. Coming out of phase 1, we dabbled in whatever the two of us could accomplish that made sense, that was easy, that was quick, that kept us alive in phase 2. But we've done no extensive work in phase 2. We've done 0 work in phase 3. And so the plan itself is a sketch. It's a start. I think that there is absolutely nothing that we're going to come up with collectively that's going to go counter to what we've been doing. It's just going to finally give legs to that and wings to that. And that's really what's exciting to me, is that we're finally going to say, okay, if in fact there's something we're going to accomplish in 10 years, what is that? How do we clearly define that? How do we know that we're there? What will it take to accomplish that? And what will we do to make sure that we can accomplish that? Mm-hmm. And I think all of us putting that together is very, very exciting. So, you okay, Gail?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Happens.
Yep.
Okay, so is that sort of the context of what we're doing? Is that set now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then let's dive in. We know that there are 5 questions that we really want to make our way through, and I'm going to do the best I can to help us expedite these so that we get to all 5 done by the time Carl leaves. So let's see what we can come up with.
Do you want Candace to help with timekeeping?
Sure.
In that way you don't have to focus on time?
How many?
I'm thinking 5 minutes. Let's give me a 5-minute sort of signal, and we'll do what we can to break it into 5-minute bits.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing that I'll just urge you to focus on is that we don't have to come up with the fine details today of how we're going to make this happen until later on in the conversation. So remember to start broad and build on what each other are saying, and then we'll get to the detailed stuff as well. Cool. All right, then in that case.
Gail, one quick point of order.
Yes.
I can't believe I'm actually saying those words. Did we have a consent agenda?
I don't know because I don't. Yes, we had minutes.
Okay.
That's all that was in the consent agenda.
Those?
Yeah, we do.
Did you do those while I was out?
No, we did not.
No.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent item on our agenda?
So moved, Hildy.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. And anybody object to these in order for us to declare them accepted by consensus? Thank you. Okay. Now we can go on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the first question that we want to put our minds to is, and of course this doesn't have to take long, but the key piece of this question is, what will our developing a plan together make possible For others, I think we've established that, but we want to review it quickly. And also, what would it make possible for creating the future? What's the value of having a plan that we work on together?
I think that's I mean, if I were to jump in, the first thing that jumped for me when you asked it in that way, it was the together piece. The value of our creating it together, that mutual ownership and commitment to whatever we come up with, it becomes ours collectively in the biggest sense, because we've always talked about doing this plan just like we do our board meetings, publicly, openly, and so to me that sort of together, where we're all together in one room, and when you say together, I'm assuming that this board is together in one room, which I just love your smile. Every time I say that, I love your smile. All of us being together in one room and having the collective input, and as you saw in my my initial post on funding, and we'll see more, inviting funders to be part of that planning so that it is their plan too, not just, oh, we'll help you with your plan, but that they own that plan and work their part of that plan too. That whole piece of together just feels very empowering to me. I mean, I'm sort of envisioning people who are watching and participating, like Annette and Susan are doing right now, making it their plan also, and they're participating. I mean, yeah, sorry.
No, how do you really feel about it?
Yeah. When you think of what that makes possible, to have all of the fellows feel like the potential is there for them to participate as well. Oh my God, and beyond, and beyond. Yeah.
So ownership, energy.
Together equals empowering. I heard that. Anything else?
The comment I would make is that General Patton was reputed to have said that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And the problem with plans is that they sort of fall over at the first point of contact with the enemy, to carry on that sort of military language. But if everyone has been involved in the planning, it means that whatever that plan is, because everybody knows what it is that you're trying to achieve, they can all be flexible in terms of how you implement that over time, and you don't just have a static document, it strikes me.
So it makes it a living entity as opposed to a static outcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Process. Okay.
Living process. Beautiful.
And I think, and I'm probably just restating what you said, Carl, so, but it feels to me like it's laying that process foundation, which is just that, which is, in developing that plan, we realize why we are developing the plan, which then gives the rationale for the continuous planning.
Yeah.
I think it also creates...
and it creates that to other people, too.
Yeah. There's a bonding part here, and I think one of the reasons why I love opening the doors is that what happens. Carl, I love the planning, the emphasis on the planning as the process. What happens in that room is people find like spirit and like energy. Imagine if that room is 200 people all over the world watching, participating, foundation leaders, and whatever, having that experience together and being together. There's a human side of this that's very exciting to me.
I also want to encourage Susan and Annette to be part of this conversation we're having right now, if you want to.
Yeah.
Because this is an example of exactly what you were talking about, Hildy, that we have going on in real time right now. So.
Yep. Something happened to your video, you guys.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, there it is.
Sorry, just thinking aloud for a moment. Our plan sounds like a wiki. And I almost wonder if in terms of developing a plan, using wikis as a tool actually is the perfect tool to literally help you do it, because by definition It's something where everybody can contribute, and it changes over time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Hi, Amy.
Hi,
Hello,
Renee.
Amy Stark joined us, and her.
I love.
I'm sorry. When a group of committed individuals focus on the same end/plan, there's a higher likelihood it will happen.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I was thinking about accountability too. That there will be something that we will be holding ourselves accountable to, and that we hope that whole Creating the Future community would feel not just accountability as well, but also willing to support the small group of people who have put themselves forward as the group called the board or the leadership team or whatever, to ensure that it actually happens on their behalf.
Yeah, there's that walking the talk piece. Thank you. Yeah, Candace is giving us the 5 minutes. There's that walking the talk piece of a lot of what we teach in those very, very basic classes that we do is if a board is governing for what matters most, what are they holding themselves accountable for? And what we talk about is that the easiest way to hold yourselves accountable is to have a plan that you own, that you built.
Yeah.
I love that, Gail.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add that having a plan
I don't think we
would make
want
possible?
What, Justin? I'm sorry.
Oh, Justin.
Well, I think to what Hildy just said, and I feel like I'm on a delay. I think diminishing the reality of having that plan, because we've talked so much about how our responsibilities as the leaders on the board tie back to seeing what the plan was, evaluating our progress towards it, being responsive to that, and just having it gives us that tool to exercise against.
Yeah,
or with.
absolutely.
One
Measure
other
success.
Yeah, one other.
And I love the wiki.
Yeah, me too.
One other thought is that doing the plan this way makes it an educational tool for other organizations, students, for having a class of students who could see how this plan evolved and developed,
in real time.
In real time, and then even if they're not there, it is archived in a way that it's not this black box. They can see how it happened, and then go to the wiki and see where it's gone to, what has happened since then.
Yep. Yep. And with facilitation, there's no reason why we can't make our way through a process quite efficiently. Okay, so moving then to the second question, and I'm going to excuse myself for another 30 seconds to go get my chill pad because I just realized my computer is hot, hot, hot. What conditions would make that kind of collective planning possible? What would we need to have? What would we need to know? What would we need to be in order to ensure that the outcomes of that process, the sense of shared support and accountability and empowerment and bonding, what would we need to have in place in order to successfully achieve that? I'll be right back.
We'd need to all be in one room.
Including Gail.
Including Gail. Yeah. Gail, who is now hot stuff.
Here. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. Justin was just joking because when you asked what do we need to have, I said we'd need to all be in one room, and Justin said including Gail, who was not in the room.
And a big chill pad.
But there is a serious side to what Justin just said. Even though we are the leadership team, for want of a better expression, of Creating the Future, we ourselves need leadership.
Yeah.
There's always got to be somebody holding the ring, especially in a process like this that has lots of engagement.
So are you talking about facilitation, Carl, of the process, or are you talking about also facilitation of the bigger process, which is the inclusive part?
I think I am talking about the latter. I think what I'm just saying is that I've done lots of things that have had high levels of engagement in terms of getting people involved in plans, but ultimately, when you have those high levels of engagement, somebody needs to ensure that we maintain a sense of momentum, keep moving forward, and somebody ultimately has to, whether it's facilitate or help, come to agreement, because not everybody will agree. And if there's one thing, being self-critical of how we operate as a board, I think sometimes we do. I think sometimes we don't always move forward as quickly as we should do. And having a leader, and I mean, if it's Gail's role now as chair to make us do that, is a necessary thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else that we would need?
There was a comment from Annette. This is actually going back to the wiki idea. She loves the idea of a wiki as long as it's easy to get and engage with by non-geeks if possible.
And I want to save the wiki. I want to not say the word wiki until we get into the how questions at the end of this. Mm-hmm. So demerits to anybody from this point forward. Carl, who says okay. Carl, wiki? Carl?
What about Kiwis?
That we can do. We have to engage the Kiwis. Thank you, Annette, for that. We'll put you on the punishment list with Carl.
What would it take for us to, what would we need to have in order for there to be the experience of and the living reality of the shared support among not only the board but also the broader fellow community or other?
Well, the thing that I have been working on and will be working on for the next week or so in writing and then moving forward aggressively on is finding partners that we can co-plan with. And I think that goes back to another thing that it makes possible. We talk often in this sector about the value of cooperation and collaboration. We frequently talk about it from the standpoint of scarcity, as in there's only so many dollars to go around, so we should all merge together and do this. But I just keep thinking of the power of having, for instance, I am asked frequently, do you know of any foundations that are doing their planning together, their actual strategic planning, not on an initiative, but their actual foundation? Here's what we plan to do over the next couple of years. Do you know of any foundations that are doing that together? And I have been asking that question for about a year now, and I've found virtually none. I found some that are doing individual initiatives. And the thought that of what could be accomplished if various groups working in various locales, and they would be related to capacity building because that's really what we're going to be talking about so much, all are coming together and creating a plan that is rooted in the same realities, and then at the end of the plan everybody goes off and does their piece of it. I just sense that there is this power of what we could accomplish that is so much huger than what any of us can do on our own in this coordinated, we're all coming from the same place way, which then to the question of, okay, what would need to be in place for that? Obviously there'd need to be deep knowledge and foreplanning and engagement and development of the relationship with whoever those partners are before we all actually get into a room together, so that we're all really on that same page, and all excited about what's possible and all coming to the plan for the same reasons that we're listing here. So I think that nurturing of those relationships as partners is really critical in terms of the way that we've talked about this, and that I'm now putting finally into action. God bless you, Carl.
Excuse me.
So partners who have deep knowledge, with whom there has been foreplanning of the relationship, who come to the work with the same knowledge and desire for the outcome.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Anything else that we would need to have in place in order for there to be a sense of collective ownership, shared experience, foundational, process-oriented, educational, building a model that others can share?
I think there would probably also need to, well, there obviously needs to be a wiki. I think there would need to be a space where we could collaboratively share information.
Mm-hmm.
So that everybody could get up to speed on the same. So what would we need to have would be some place where everybody has access to information, everybody has access to what the plan is for the plan.
Yep. And when you think about that space for collaboratively sharing information, what would it take for it to work well?
Commitment.
You have to make sharing ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
You have to make it so that people can give very, very small amounts of time, micro-volunteering in effect. Because I think one of the challenges of something like this is that you have to accumulate a certain level of knowledge to dip in. So quite frequently, I don't think it's people don't contribute because they don't feel they have the time. They don't contribute because they're scared of looking like a fool. I'm saying what you already know.
Under the banishment category, both Amy and Annette commented on something like Trello, which is another tool, and the only reason I'm mentioning it
is because you want me to hurt you.
I'm mentioning it because one, I'm honoring the fact that they are
that they said it.
They are tweeting, and I'm also mentioning it because of what you just said, Carl, which is it needs whatever it is needs to be amazingly simple and straightforward, and so that you don't look, foolish, and you don't have a fear of looking foolish. I guess because really what it boils down to is the fear of looking foolish.
Yeah.
So that speaks to facilitation, some kind of facilitation role in ensuring that everything we do is easy to contribute, easy to participate, easy to understand what's going on and where we are. That's a role that we might be thinking about.
I'm thinking about the communities that we have right now. I'm thinking about the Facebook group where Mark and Susan are facilitating that, where the conversation's happening and people are talking, but there is I agree with you, Gail. I think that somebody who and facilitate in the true root of the word to make easy.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I keep kidding about the technology, but whatever the technology is that we wind up using, somebody's going to need an introduction to it. I'm the one that Dimitri's been talking about Trello for a year, 2 years. I haven't touched it because it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that facilitation on several levels of that pre-planning time, I think, is really, really critical.
This raises a thought that came up in the engagement conversations that was going on previously about the idea of a mentor or a co-team member or someone to work directly with people and help move them forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've really put our finger on the part about there being a role, and we can certainly think deeper about what the preconditions would be for that role to be successful. Can you think of anything else that would have to be in place in order for us to get this plan done?
Yes. I think that we need staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that even if we were to set a date right now, have partners in place, have all of that, there needs to be, I think we are finally at the point where this organization needs, we've eschewed the words Chief Executive Officer and loved the words Chief Mission Officer, but I think we are at the point where we need a Chief Mission Officer, and I think that needs to absolutely, without doubt, not be me or Dimitri, because that's not where our brilliance lies. And so anybody that assumes that we're waiting to get funded so that Dimitri and I can step into that role, we're actually waiting to get funded so that Dimitri and I can step out of that role.
Yeah.
I am feeling that one of the, everything that we're talking here is dependent on having somebody who facilitates making the plan happen and making everything else happen around here. And I'm seeing that a Chief Mission Officer and an admin person for that Chief Mission Officer at this point, I see it being a stress on all of us trying to put this together without that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That raises a thought, or that sort of fleshes out a thought, that when you were describing everyone gets together, all these different organizations, all these entities get together, do the planning together, but go off and do basically apply the conceptual components to their own organizations. The power of that, the image of the power of that is unbelievable. The thought was you need someone like an evangelist for this process, whose job it is to bring people together and to inspire and to be able to move it forward, which is exactly what you're talking about. The Chief Mission Officer is the missionization, but it really is evangelizing the process and evangelizing the potential outcome so that people can see that image themselves and be excited by it.
Yeah, I would see that person's role, at least in part, before the plan actually happens, making sure, shepherding all of the pieces of making sure that everybody is where they need to be, mind, body, spirit, in order to make that happen, and then afterwards shepherding whatever it takes to make sure that the plan is implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So that speaks then to the need for there to be some resources in place in order to pay them, unless we are assuming that we would create the kind of position where the compensation is in satisfaction. In the sense of accomplishment. I'm trying to not use the V word, because
Sorry.
I don't want it to sound like one of those small roles, because it isn't a small role.
Well,
yeah. Okay. All right. I'm suspecting that
you guys have made it very, very clear that it's unacceptable that Dimitri and I are not getting paid to not be the Chief Mission Officer.
Yeah. Yep. That's okay. Absolutely. And what do our friends at Vantage Point call it? Knowledge philanthropists.
Knowledge philanthropists.
Yeah. Okay. So, noting that Carl has about 10 minutes left, let's talk about the actions that will create those conditions. Concrete and specific. Justin, you look like you're about to say something. No. You're muted. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Justin's been having a little bit of a problem. We've been having a little bit of problem hearing him. He's been blipping in and out. I'm wondering if it's reboot time.
Carl, are you going to add something?
Okay, well, I think one of the things on the basis that you have to plan, I think one of the things that I would say, which might be disagreeing slightly with Hildy's point earlier, is that I think you need deadlines. Yeah. If there's one thing that makes me do things, it's deadlines. So even if it's quite a simple plan at the minute that sort of says version 0.1 of this plan will be done by the 31st of December this year, I think that would help us actually, because we do prevaricate a bit occasionally.
It's a great idea.
Are you making that as a proposal?
I am making that as a proposal. Version 0.1 as of the plan.
Okay.
I would love to know what is in version 0.1. What will we commit to have done by 12/31?
At its very simplest, again on the basis that you have to plan, can we have a skeleton for what the components of the plan are, what the major sections are? We might not have filled those in, we might not know how we're going to answer the resources questions and so on, but yeah, I mean, essentially,
that part, you're in luck. I will be blogging next week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the bullet points at the end of the blog post that it took me a week to write. But the bullet points at the end note that there's about 5 or 6 supplemental blog posts that will be coming after that, including what is the plan for planning.
Yeah.
And it's just a sketch, and it's just, as you said, Carl, it's a sketch off the top of my mind that at least gives us something that we can say, that's a good idea, or no, this doesn't work, but at least it's a start.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When I first got a proper job as a researcher, I had a guy who was my boss or advisor that said something that I found really useful that I wish I'd known before, which is you should always start off by designing an empty report, and then you essentially design your research questions to fill the report so that you maximize your effort on the things that you have to deliver first and foremost. Besides that being a great bit of advice for any researcher, I think it feels the same for a strategic plan. Design an empty plan and then go away and do the work so that we can answer the questions to fill it.
And we do have a framework. We have a planning framework that many of us know, many of us use in our work. There's no reason why that can't become the first document on our table that we're examining.
So Gail, if you follow through that line of thinking, you have your planning framework with an empty plan, and then you start to put names against individual sections.
Yeah.
You start to put deadlines against individual sections, and then something might sort of appear. I was always said, the other thing I was always told is that whatever your whenever it is that you whenever the deadline is, just give people 2 days before, because as the time period for when they actually are allowed to do the work, because they only ever do it 2 days before the deadline.
Or 2 hours.
Yep.
In my case, it's 2 hours.
So can folks hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think it might have been my headset and my computer not talking to each other. I think I'm going back to Hildy's comment, which was what I was hearing was really a navigator of the process, someone who's navigating. And so to me that strikes as a resource. So I'm still a little bit about more clarity about what we think they need to make possible, or what having a navigator would make possible, because we may have the resources at our disposal to move that process. There's sort of this part of me that says I hate to wait till we say we've hired someone without clarity of, well, what is it that we need as a body to move this forward? And so I guess a little bit of where I am and a little anxiety I'm feeling is, we've blown this really big with all the potential that it has, but I think to what Carl's saying, I also feel like we have to quickly zero in on, as the body, we, the board, this collection of individuals, what can we start moving in the very near term that gets us more quickly to that point where we're all coming together? And what's going to propel that? So I guess my question is, what were you thinking, Hildy, as you thought about a navigator in terms of what they were making possible? Because we may have other ways of getting to that objective.
Time, commitment, focus, that this is their job, is to make sure that this gets done, and not to also make sure the newsletter gets out and a flash class gets recorded and a book gets written. Somebody whose job is to focus on making this happen.
And one would presume then that we're talking about not necessarily needing a huge amount of supervision as well.
Oh yeah.
Because if we take you two out of the equation for that role, then it's someone who can be somewhat autonomous in getting the work done.
I think anything that we would ever think about around here would have to quickly become autonomous.
Yep. Okay. So can we talk about then, as an action step, if under the general heading of navigator, creating a job description or a position description or some sort of outline of what it is that that role would be responsible for and accomplishing?
I think navigation is one of the roles. I'm really seeing this person as the one being charged with accomplishing the mission of this organization. I'm really seeing this as the leader of this thing, and not a
functionary.
Not a function-based, yeah. Not a okay. You're going to run the planning process, and this will be a 2-year thing, and you're out of here. I'm seeing this as the person who is who's going to lead the charge to accomplish the mission, and that's step one. And that is leading the charge that we have a plan to accomplish the mission. And I don't think, Justin, that I wasn't suggesting that we not move forward aggressively until we have that person. I am just seeing that one of the prerequisites to it happening well is that there be somebody who's dedicated to making sure it happens. Because there's a lot of moving parts, as Carl has noted. There's a lot of moving parts. I think that it will be more likely to happen more quickly the quicker we have somebody who is fully responsible and accountable for that.
What say you, Justin?
Go ahead, Carl. You're on time.
My provocative response to Hildy's comment was, well, actually, then that makes me think that what we need isn't a plan; it's a strategy. And that if we can get to the point where we have this navigator person in place, it's their point to actually do the plan to implement the strategy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
For me, the only reason why I would be a little bit nervous about that, Carl, is that then it takes the board and the fellows out of the equation again, and maybe there's a marriage point between those where we can achieve both.
So again, being provocative, is what you're looking for a navigator or an implementer?
Both.
Both.
They are the person that leads this charge. Susan says a champion. Amy says a project manager. But in fact, they are. Somebody needs to run this organization. If I'm hit by a bus tomorrow, and I'm not doing a great job of running this organization right now, then even that doesn't happen. There's got to be somebody who leads this thing.
But do you see what's happening though? We're trying to blend two conversations. One that is so functionally specific to a plan, and then laying on top of it the mandate or the need to have something much bigger. And I think we're getting stuck in two different conversations.
Yeah.
I think to Carl's point, I think that, and it's. Let me go back to Hildy's point. My reaction was that allows the board to abdicate their responsibility. I understand it shouldn't be Hildy or Dimitri. I understand that. We need leadership, and I actually push back. I think it is functional. I think and that was why I was pushing, was to say it is actually our job to figure out and to engage in the planning. And I think before, and this is really how it feels, before abdicating to the idea of somebody else being the responsible party, I want to stress test our board to say, how much of that is something that we actually need to be owning in order for this, when we talk about a condition for success, us owning the process, not just owning the plan, but as we said, we talked about owning the process of planning together. Yes, it can't be Hildy, it can't be Dimitri who makes all of the things run on time. And I guess it speaks to what Carl is. We do need some clarity of what are all the variables, what are all the trains that we're coordinating.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a board, we have to be able to look at that and say, how much, going back to the resources, what do we have? What do we, and I think this is actually a need question, which is okay, let me reframe it. It's not a need question. What would create the highest potential for an engaged board to have ownership of the plan with regard to how it responds to everything that's required to make that plan possible? I'm glad this is being recorded because I can't restate that.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to go. I'm really sorry to leave at what feels like quite a critical time. I
It's okay.
hope to catch up with you soon.
We get it.
Yeah. The rest of it will be available for reviewing.
Okay. Again, my apologies, everybody, but good luck with the rest of the meeting.
Thanks,
Thank
Carl.
you, Carl.
I appreciate your pushing, Justin, because what I'm realizing in my comments is that I'm coming from such an internal place and such a reactive place that I really appreciate you pulling me out of that. That what I'm saying is somebody has to be in charge, and that what I've seen in the "it's not me" is that it needs to be somebody else, but that somebody else is a bunch of somebodies, and we do have resources and we do have a board. Well,
and one of the outcomes of the plan should be, hopefully will be, the development of that role, that senior leader role.
Yeah.
And it may ultimately end up being the same person.
Yeah.
But
that's not our job at this moment.
I agree, Justin, that putting that overlay on it does two things. One, I think it dilutes this process, that person being the mentor. And I also think that it, as you suggested, potentially abdicates the responsibility from the board. So I think that having it be clear is important.
If we're not doing the planning and making the planning happening, what are we doing as a board? I mean, fundamentally, what's our purpose? Because
I'm repeating your question.
We already said oversight is not what we strive for.
Right.
Okay.
Right, creating is, and your question more or less was, what would create the highest potential for us as leaders of this organization to make the highest potential of this plan happen?
Yeah, and that is navigation. It's championing. Whoever said that word, somebody who can keep us focused on our commitment to, if we choose December 31st, then they're quarterbacking a process.
Annette had initially used the word navigator. She was actually talking about navigating for tech, but she was, as far as people who are commenting, there's also some additional comments. It was mission captain as a way of thinking of this. Amy said whoever is talking is right. Creating the Future board should be accountable first. Project manager for writing a plan is first step. And Susan Detweiler said board owns the process of planning and owns the plan and strategy. The pilot executes the plan and provides feedback to the board.
Sure. It sounds like that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like that's what we're looking for. So let's get back to focusing instead of debating names and things. Let's get back to focusing on actions that we can take then that put this role in place. And one of the things we talked about was creating some kind of description of this position and the accomplishments that are expected.
And I think that and then we can find out what resources we have to do that, because I like that.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
So let's describe the what so that we can then start talking about the how. And you know, thank God we've put, the first thing I wrote under actions is, well, we need to have a date by when this is done.
When will we be all in? What I'd sort of like to work backwards from when will we be all in one room, and what will we need to have in that room, and what will we need to have beforehand.
Sure.
And I deconstruct this just like we would do the boxes and arrows for anything that we do.
And may also we say to everyone, take the pressure off of worrying about whether or not we have the money.
No, right.
Do not think about that.
Or the staff or the people.
Yeah. Just talk about what it is that would make the best possible planning process happen.
Okay, so we're all in a room. Pick a date by which we are all in a room doing a plan.
Yeah.
Well, what feels, and this is where it's unfortunate that we don't have more of the board voices right now, because really the question is, what do people feel is that kind of a time frame? Because I think that's getting that emotional momentum piece. You know, if you say 2 years from now, you know, you lost me. If you're saying, yeah, you know, but you know, are we talking that this is something that we think needs to happen by the end of this year? That we need to come together?
Yes.
You know, that if it's beyond the end of this year, we've lost an opportunity. We lost the window. So
yep.
As a condition, we didn't speak about timeliness as one of the conditions.
So we have we come together by December 31st of this year. Okay. What are the things, the functions that need to happen prior to that happening?
Well, we need to find a way for everyone to commit to that date. I think that's a really big piece of it, that it's either all of us or it's none of us.
Right. Okay, what else? And I'm going to push this fast and hard.
We need a location.
Location, what else?
Time frame.
Well, that was the
Facilitator.
But how
long?
How long are we talking about? We're talking about 1 day, 3 days.
Okay.
Length of time. We need a facilitator, and I will dig my heels in forever for that. And it's not one of us. And they understand Creating the Future's thought framework and have some familiarity with how to use it.
I want to know why it's not one of us.
Because you cannot, this is, you know, I'll try to say this in the nicest way possible. You cannot suck and blow at the same time.
I don't know. Bart Simpson says you can.
No, because having been in the role of facilitating groups that struggle through, even the ones who really know what they're doing, struggle through this process, I do not want one of us trying to do both.
Okay.
Yeah. I want somebody who can give us maximum care.
Yeah, that is with the caveat that a facilitator would need to be skilled in the framework and knowledgeable.
It would have to be one of our fellows.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
They would need to have immense experience with facilitating the planning process that we use.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm not willing to use any other framework, and it doesn't make a shred of sense. Then there's no dog food eating going on.
No. It's not even in the. As far as I'm concerned, it's not on the table.
Yeah. Okay.
What else do we need to have functionally before? What does everybody need to have? So we also said that they need to have all of the information, all parties. So all parties, if all parties need to have the information, then we need to know who all the parties are.
Yeah. That's right. If we talked about partners to co-plan with, then we need those partners.
Uh-huh.
Gail, Susan Detweiler was agreeing with you that you can't facilitate and participate at the same time.
Yeah. And the only place where I'm pushing back on that a little bit is if we are demonstrating, and 99% of groups out there either think they can't afford or think they don't need or etc. a facilitator, is there a way to demonstrate what it looks like for those groups that are going to facilitate themselves because they read a book on it? Because that's the reality. And so that's the only place where I'm coming from in terms of our being a demonstration. You know, I don't want to get into that right now. I want to push on this, but that's the only place that I'm playing with. What else?
I appreciate that logic. The only trouble is I'm not interested in using it in this particular context.
Great. Like I said, we can have that conversation separately. So
Yeah.
we need to know who the partners are. We need to have a commitment on their part to the three aims that I have been talking about in all of the writing that I've been doing and the conversations that I've started having, which is people who are willing to learn / explore / plan alongside of us, apply whatever we mutually come up with to their own work. So if that means that their boards are involved, rather than just a staff person who goes back and then says, but my board won't say yes, and that we all put what we have into the pot. And those are the three things that I have been looking for in partners for just about everything that we're doing anymore. I'm finding it over and over coming to the same questions. Learn together, apply it to your own work, and put what you have into the pot. So we need to find partners who are willing to do that. We need to negotiate memos of understanding with them so that we have that ahead of time. We need to have agreements with them. We need to then have the online space that we're talking about for everybody having the same information. Someplace that is easy and simple, and that, if necessary, has someone who can be the facilitator, navigator of that space.
You're also talking about, when we go back and look at committing to the date, we're talking not just the board committing to the date, but we're talking about these partners.
So it's board and partners.
I think that's really important to make that clarification.
Well, and you know what happens then is that because this is a pretty short window, end of this year, and it's July now, we're you know, it's going to be a pretty special individual who is ready to jump on whatever this is so quickly. But not that there's anything wrong with that, or not that we should say no. It's just that
that we don't make that the sole criteria, but that this is what we're aiming at. Mm-hmm. And you know, if it winds up that we do it in February, the deal is that we don't wait until next July.
Yeah.
And you know, the tendency is to say, well, we're not going to be able to get anybody by December 31st, so let's wait until July. And you know, I'm in with you guys saying we aim for December 31st. If that can't happen, we'll see how quickly it can happen. But yeah, I'm not.
I also think there's not a number that's limited. I mean, if we've got 2 organizations that want to do this with us, then that's okay. You know, great if we had 10. But I think that the effort needs to be made to do this as a demonstration, right. And it's more of a demonstration if it's not just us doing a planning process.
But what that brings to mind functionally as we're moving this thing backwards, in determining who the partners are, there needs to be engagement with those partners. To the sleuthing that I have been beginning to do, but that engagement, if we're going to get something done fast, is going to have to be beyond just Hildy. So everybody's going to have to be engaging. It's going to have to be our board members, our fellows, our champions that are very familiar. So champions who are familiar with exactly what we're trying to do, so that nobody says, well, yeah, I would talk to somebody, but I don't know, will you come with me? That if at the very least we have a buddy system so that somebody can go with them, but that it's not always me.
Okay. And is there anything that would be a precondition of that? Thorough briefing, obviously, would be one of them.
Thorough prep. So champions to engage potential partners, and what is needed before that is thorough preparation.
Yeah.
The reason that I have been doing all of these blog posts, and the reason that I'm spending so much of this time working on those blog posts is specifically because I know they will be helpful for anybody to be this ball and run with it.
Yep. 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 If we have a place to point to say, look at this body of information that you can look at online, that helps them to see some of the thinking behind what it is we're trying to do.
Right, right. And what that leads me to is once I have the blog posts completed, there's going to be obviously engaging people in conversation around those posts, but it's also going to be important that all of us as board members look at those posts and say, you could phrase this differently, this isn't clear, etc., so that we go back and edit those posts to make sure that they are absolutely what we need them to be. So I can be the one to write them initially, but you know, I get as stuck in my brain as everybody else gets stuck in their brains. And so having people with beginner's mind look at those posts and say, what the hell are you talking about here?
You mean a wiki?
10 points for Gryffindor for saying that.
Okay. Justin, I will index this point in the video that's saved and send that link to that
Carl.
To Carl, so that
he can know that you're carrying the banner for him.
Beautiful.
I have to tell you that his equating the plan to a wiki, like, I mean, well, he was talking about the process of the plan, but I jumped right to the plan is a wiki,
right?
Which is, it has the question, and we constantly are, as different minds come to it, we are constantly rewriting that.
Yes.
So it becomes Planopedia.
Isn't that beautiful? And so just to finish the point that you were making, Hildy, about our rationale being outlined and accessible to all of us, and the precondition for that is board members that are in consensus with the content of those blog posts, that are briefed, but also using them, prepared to use them. Can I ask one question about just going back, thinking about who those partners might be, is a precondition there that we would, as board members, if we're going to participate there, we would have to know who it is we're talking about. I can't think of a funder that is, in my knowledge, that I would even imagine talking to about this. But I'd be happy to do that with others who do have those partners in their network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of the reasons that in the engagement planning, I had said that one of the things that I wanted to include was talking about how we engage funders to participate in this as potential partners. I've got a long list of people that I have been touching base with who have found it intriguing. The interesting thing about this being a demonstration project is that it takes it out of the realm of, well, I only fund homelessness in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Because it's not, I'm asking you to fund this, I'm asking you to be a part of exploring how you do your work as your foundation. And it is a very different animal, and so the people that have gotten excited when I've talked about it are not all capacity builders. Mm-hmm. You know, some of them are, and those are really where we would find the most simpatico when we're going through phase one of the plan. Is really looking at what can happen when you're talking about funders that do capacity building. But it's one of the reasons that I wanted to include it in our engagement conversations. But I think that not necessarily waiting for the next engagement conversation, but having that as an active. I think one of the, so here's another piece of it then, and I am very sorry that it is only us that is in this conversation. But I think that there needs to be a commitment on the part of board members to engage in this pre-planning conversation and the work. And if we're talking about doing this in this way, where we're all engaging potential partners, there needs to be a commitment on the part of every board member that they will participate. So, for instance, if the conversation comes up on the listserv and we're all brainstorming and sharing on the listserv, that there's actually response and conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that embedded in all of this, if we are to do this in this way, immediately before we can wait for somebody to help to navigate this, an individual, I think that there needs to be commitment on the part of every board member that they'll be part of this process.
Mm-hmm.
And not part of it as empirically, but part of it as in I will participate actively and do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
well, I think that gets to what is that fifth question of what will we as leaders of this organization do to ensure this planning happens.
Yeah, that's right.
I hear a voice that would come, I think, would be expressed if more were on this call of, well, again, how do we establish sort of that list of things that we as board members need to do and be responsive to? You know, which I think is classic. I think it's classic board. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And so I think we need to figure out how to navigate that we're not just creating this list, but we do need the full board to come together to say, okay, we've mapped out this timeline, and a lot of the conditions and the sequential pieces, but I think to my point around the navigator, which is now when we think about all the conditions and resources required to do that, what do we have to bring to making that possible as a board?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you guys, because I know what I'm willing to do, and I'm spending most of my summer doing it. What specifically, to get to an answer to that, will each of us sitting around this table right now do? Yes, it would be.
I think I'd rather ask the question before it first, because in order for us to commit to it, we have to commit to something. We have to know what it is we're working with, and there's a reason why we put them in this order when we talked the other day. So if it's possible for us to just finish that piece,
yes.
I think we've got a pretty good sense of and you know, admittedly, we're taking on a very ambitious time frame, which we may find, you know, remembering that this is just the first conversation around this, and we may need to open up the door or the window of possibility that, you know, for a short period of time, maybe we're going to meet twice a month. Maybe we're going to do something else, because the reality is nobody replies to the listserv. So let's not talk about that. Let's not even set ourselves up for that level of frustration. Let's find a way to take this on as our board project and really dig into it. Establishing what resources we have, and one of the resources is going to be time. So perhaps we could talk about that.
And so I'm not throwing a wrench. I might be throwing some grease.
Okay.
And hopefully it gets on the chain rather than under the wheels. We've talked about the potential for developing the plan together, and much around the engagement, and what I'm still feeling is missing, that actually might get to what you were just asking, Gail, is what is the plan going to make possible for board members and for the organization? Because I feel that, you know, we also have to be bought into the plan.
Yep.
To that end goal. Even in the context of knowing the planning is the goal. I think there is something in us being able to say what do we actually see the plan making possible, so that we can bring that back to engage people around to say, remember, we wanted a plan that's going to do X for us. So how do we make that possible?
I keep coming back to the accountability piece. I think that what the plan will make possible is that we will know the answer before the question is asked in many cases, because it will be in the plan.
Yeah, and accountability to achieving the program, the mission.
Okay. Clarity of action.
You know, we talk a lot about the 10-year. I think clarity of context for action, and decisions, clarity for you know what are the factors that are weighing in on any one decision that the board might make. But again, that all comes from context, which comes from we've talked a lot about the quote 10-year mission, and I think that there needs to be deep clarity about what we intend to accomplish in 10 years. What we intend to do to accomplish that, and how we'll know.
Yep. I'm glad that was recorded.
It's the same questions I've been asking. Yeah, those are easy for me. I could do those over and over.
That's right. So with that being said, what resources?
Well, I would just, sorry, Gail, but I want to reiterate that the plan is also the thing that so much of our, when we've been talking about bylaws, when we've been talking about financials and financial processes, they've all been, they all use the plan at some point as the fulcrum for what they're doing. And so it's fulcrum's not the right word, but it's the point of resistance upon which we apply all of that process and thinking. It's the thing that we can try and move with that. And without having it there, that's why so much of this feels so ethereal and esoteric. Because we can't then say, well, what would it mean to ask the question about the plan? Now we have a plan that we can say, the plan said we would be doing X. We just said in our process we should ask about the plan, how we're accomplishing the plan, how we're progressing, and what we need to be doing in terms of making the considerations that we have to make, whatever they are. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. It is the thing that we move around.
Are we concerned? Are we worried that there's not enough belief in the value of a plan?
I think everybody wants it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want it. I think some people want it desperately. I know Mark wants it desperately.
Why would you ask that question, Gail? What leads you to ask that question?
I think because I was pondering that we went back to ask ourselves, what's this plan going to achieve again? Like, why should we buy into all the time it's going to take to do it? Made me think, do we have the belief that this plan is valuable? I think it's a valid question, and I think it's one we should probably ask frequently.
It's the assumption that we have to clarify.
Yeah.
We assume that that is true based on what everybody is saying.
Yeah.
But we haven't fully clarified exactly what that assumption is or is based on. I don't question it, but we often put it up there. The plan will follow, and we just sort of say we should all make a plan. But we all know that making the plan is not you should make the right plan.
Yeah.
This is it's that management versus leadership. So management is getting things done, and leadership is getting the right thing done. What's the right plan for us as an organization? What does the right plan make possible for us? So that then we can. It's not planning for planning's sake. It's planning to make that plan a reality, because that's what we all want to see possible.
That's right.
You know, Gail, I always but in my mind, there's always the overlay of this being a demonstration, whatever we're doing. So the plan, you know, then the question that I would ask is are plans important for other organizations? Are plans important for any organization? Is having a plan that makes things clear valuable? And so moving step beyond, do we think a plan is valuable for us and our organization? There is the question of, do we think plans are valuable overall?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to do this as a demonstration with partners who are seeing this as a demonstration, then, you know, to me that becomes a given. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. You know, it calls into question everything we're doing.
That's right.
If it's not there.
Yep. I think there's real value, though, in asking the question, to be sure. And I'm sorry, as somebody else has said, I'm really sorry that there's so few of us here right now, but I do believe that the point of the exercise is to give us comfort in knowing that we have pre-thought our way towards success, that we've laid it down in some kind of document or wiki or whatever it's going to be, some kind of process that we can frequently revisit, but also use as a tool, as a guide, as a measuring stick for getting us to the thing we want. And talking about the planning process isn't the same as the plan. So, you know, in some ways we have to be patient with ourselves that we haven't had the phase 1 conversation concluded. So, you know, there's going to have to be some faith in what we will end up accomplishing.
I am feeling anxious to get back to the questions
Sure.
you were asking, Gail. We talked about what actions will create the conditions. We made a map, at least I was mapping with boxes and arrows, the actions that will create those conditions.
Yeah.
I think that what resources does each board member have to create, to put those actions into action, allows for the conversation, if you feel it's necessary, with those individual board members to say, do you think planning is necessary, and that we move on from there.
Okay. So can we start with talking about what resources we would need?
Sure.
To make this happen?
All of the time and knowledge that goes into establishing relationships with partners. Obviously, we will need funds to all come together, and funds for the work of all of the pre-stuff of putting it together. So the infamous wiki, somebody to pay for the time that it takes to put together all of the materials and all of the stuff that is going to, the online space for the information, the facilitation, the navigation of that space, et cetera. I mean, there's going to be funds required.
Yeah.
There's going to be a location required. There's going to be a decision needed for where that location is going to be. Based hopefully not on, well, I heard there's a cheap rate at the Motel 6 there.
Right.
So we need to determine the type of location that will support our successful planning.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So and then we need someone to find that location.
Yep.
And to do.
There's all of the event planning
logisticals.
part. It's all of the event planning part.
Yeah.
The logistics of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm putting as another function logistics coordination.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that we also need, in terms of the knowledge and the time it takes to get it, not just to establish relationships with partners, but to be 100% comfortable that every one of us understands what the planning framework is,
Mm-hmm.
and feels confident about it, using it as a as an approach.
Right. Right.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Gail, because I was trying to figure out how to be gracious, open, and engaging as we think about bringing partners in and recognizing they will be in different places than we are.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll be looking for the SWAT.
And it's again one of the blog posts, but also one of the big pieces of what I am spending time on after all of these blog posts. My next big project is to put together not only the flash class on community impact planning, but a white paper on community impact planning that takes people through the steps with examples. And then we have other pieces, other videos that I think that there is enough there, plus the Pollyanna principles, that somebody could get a really solid grounding in what the planning process looks like and examples of real life plans.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the two big chunks of those two things will take me through the end of my sabbatical.
So I definitely feel that as we talk about everything, the only piece that feels daunting is the partner piece. I think the logistics of getting the board together and doing all of this, I mean, I'll be honest, in my head that's easy peasy. I mean, I know there's stuff around it, but we're talking 10, 12 people, other inviting fellows if we think that's, but taking our community and coordinating them and bringing them together, I do not see as particularly challenging. Be very easily negotiated and or navigated. I think it's the partner piece that creates the challenging piece and requires the most attention to pull out from you, Hildy, because you very clearly said, A, you can't do it all. B, you don't have the networks. We all need to tap our networks and our resources and be engaged in the process, as we should all be engaged. But there's a lot there to accomplish and to move in this time frame. It's there, and I feel like that's, to me, that's when we think about that question of what will we as leaders need to do, we need to crack that nut as board members.
Mm-hmm.
So you are naming two functions. What will we as leaders do? You are naming one as handle the logistics, and another as engage partners.
Mm-hmm. And what resources do we, at this moment, resources do we believe that we actually have?
I'll go out on a limb, and I think that we most definitely have the talent and capacity and facility, or let me see, the competency and capacity to do the logistics among us. I think the skill set exists among the group of us to pull those logistics off. And it's just a matter of each of us taking an ownership of a piece of that. And I put myself right up there saying, I can commit time to this on that piece. And it's pretty transactional in nature. So I think it's doable. The other one is where I think that's where we have the question of what assets can everyone bring to that partnership engagement and development.
The pieces that I'm seeing necessary, again, in engaging partners, and we have the resources for all of that, is one, board members need to feel prepared. And so, I certainly have the capacity to do any prep work that needs to happen in terms of that. But I also believe that we each individually know many, many more people who might be potential partners than we think we do. Mm-hmm. And the reason I have a long list is because that is what I have been listening for the past 2 years when I have conversations with people. And if we were to put on our listening hats in conversations over the next 2 weeks that we have with anybody, we would find that we know a lot more people than we think we do.
Mm-hmm.
That could be potential partners, or it could introduce us to potential partners.
You know, the most exciting part of that point is that when we move away from the handout, can you write us a check approach to this partner engagement, to asking, are you interested in learning how to plan alongside us? It changes the whole dynamic of what's expected and what's needed.
And in some cases, it's scarier for them. So it is the ones who, when you say that, go, whoa, that are the ones that. So it is a very, very different dynamic, by intention.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go, jumping back to resources,
yeah.
I'd like us to think of our fellows in that mix, because as Gail was just talking, I was just thinking, if I go to the Meyer Foundation here in Washington, D.C. and start talking to someone, this is a mutually beneficial conversation, because if they say, ooh, I like that, there are 3 potential outcomes. 4. Fourth being, okay, whatever. I've at least voiced an idea that's now floating in the ether. The other is, that's great, I'd love to be engaged, let me know, what can we do? The other is, well, I'm not sure about that, but the work you're doing is really interesting. I might have organizations that might be interested in doing this work with you as a fellow. I mean, they're not going to use that language, but, and then the third is sort of all of the above, which is they say, wow, this is great, we need to bring this, not only do we need to do this, but we need to do it in our community. So I think there's an enticement of fellows, depending on the fellow, but those that are active in their community and do have conversations with, I think about Rebecca as an example, Rebecca Hurd. We know she has no problem talking to anybody. And I could see her having this conversation and seeing that play out with the permission of saying, it might lead to something for Creating the Future, it might lead to something for you, it might lead something for your community or for the practitioner. But that just broadens the assets that are making those connections.
And especially being and you would see this in the prep, and you'll see this in the blog posts over the coming week, that the approach we always take to these sorts of conversations is open-ended sleuthing, which is not we're asking you for anything. We don't want you to be a partner. We want to talk to you about what we're doing, and we want to see what's exciting to you about this. And if it's exciting to you and you want to play, great. And if it's exciting to you and you don't want to play, but you know somebody who does, great. And if it's not exciting to you, but you've got amazing ideas to add into the mix, then we've just benefited immensely from this conversation. So the approach that we would be taking is we are not asking for anything. We are not asking them to be anything except to share their ideas, their wisdom, their perspectives. Because we want this to be what it can be, and there is huge benefit just in having that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Which is how we built two diaper banks.
so I think, along those lines, I think, to make that possible, we need to open that invitation. Obviously, I think it's a strong suggestion of board members to participate, but also to fellows to participate. I think we need to have, I don't know what to call it, an orientation, a training. I mean, as we have more of what you're working on right now, Hildy, kind of accessible to us, we need to come together and talk about and all get oriented in a space.
Right. And that's when you guys were talking about before that one of the preconditions for having champions to engage potential partners is thorough preparation of the champions. That's what I would envision.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does make me think about how, when we're engaging the fellows, the question that we have often pondered, which is, what talents, gifts, and skills do you have that you have not yet been asked to contribute? This fits beautifully in that framework. Imagine somebody hoping that they're going to be asked at some point and just waiting. And now suddenly we're opening that door of possibility, and you never know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure I heard it in the 4 items. I may have, but it was a little hard for me to hear you, Justin. But another thing that's happening is just in that process is the spreading of the knowledge of creating the future. So
I would go one step further, that it is spreading the mission of creating the future, because it is creating more starfish.
Yeah.
Because as Justin was talking, that it's somebody who says, this doesn't feel like us, but what you just said there is really interesting, and I want to ask that question at my next board meeting. I want to
better phrase. It's not just what we are or who we are, but what we're doing that's intriguing, and or potentially intriguing to people. And it's spreading the mission. It is doing missionary work, I guess, is a way of thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do each of us sit with somebody who says, I've never been asked that question before, or, wow, the way you framed that changes everything. And the value in having those conversations with a targeted group, a targeted population, is of people who are influencers in the field of capacity building. That's freaking awesome.
It sounds like you're like changing the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. So I'm conscious of the time. It's now, we should really be wrapping up. We've gotten through all 5 questions, which is remarkable. Although there's
still feeling immensely like everything just became Hildy will do. In part because I'm doing these blog posts. But I'm feeling like, okay, the preparation for everybody feeling comfortable to go out and be a champion, I would want to know who's going to do all of these pieces.
Fair point.
And if you guys are saying it's me, then I'm okay with that, but I would want to hear that out loud.
What's your time frame, Hildy?
I'm going to have, in the next 2 weeks, all of the blog posts initially done.
Okay.
And from there, I am going to start contacting some of the people that I have been interested in talking to start having some of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to propose that this be an item of our agenda for our next board meeting, which is you complete the work you're working on, but I think all of the next level of all of this engagement that's a question we need to talk about at the board meeting. How are we going to make that partner engagement possible? And then if we need to fast track some kind of orientation, we figure out what needs to happen to make that possible. Yes, will you be a strong lead in that? Absolutely, Hildy. But you don't have to do the logistics. You don't have to, or even figure out what it needs to be designed to be like. There are other minds to put to that. And I would say, it's great if the vast majority of that, thought process and articulation is happening prior to the next board meeting. For the next board meeting, we all read all of those and we talk about.
A thought just occurred to me in terms of, and it's very in the weeds and it's very granular, but in terms of the question of, okay, if we are engaging the fellows and asking them, how is that done in a way that that they see all of the potential that you just listed, Justin? In terms of if I were to go to the Meyer Foundation, what would I say and what would happen? And what occurs to me there is the energy of a Google Hangout with several of the board members who are already excited about it, talking to the fellows, and you know, it could be board members who are fellows, etc. But just that energy of something live where people can either be participating in the hangout or watch it afterwards or whatever, but that it becomes a conversation about. It could even include, I could be part of it and talk about whatever conversations I've already had, but I'm just seeing that there are very granular logistical pieces at this point. Just as we say, as we know in the planning process, that we start big and that it gets down to who's going to do what next Tuesday. I'm seeing that we're really at the list of pieces of who's going to do what next Tuesday, and that's very exciting to me. And once I have these blog posts done, I think that it'll make it even more clear what needs to happen. But I think engaging the fellows is a big piece. I think engaging fellows and board as champions to engage funders, to engage partners.
I'm not sure. Can I just think this through out loud? I feel really confident and happy with the idea of engaging board members because we are having this conversation in this context. I'm also aware, though, that 6 months is a pretty short time, and I don't want us, or I'm a little bit concerned about us. Shoot, I can't think of the words. I'm a little bit concerned about us diffusing our efforts to the point where we, start going down rabbit holes that we would love to go down if we had staff and resources and time. But at this moment, we have us, we have what we know right now, and I think I'm hoping to get to use a path that will move us fast along the pathway rather than having to create something brand new. And it would be ideal if we could engage all 100 fellows in this conversation, but I'm not sure that it's going to change the nature of the outcome at this moment.
Let me flesh out.
Not to say that I don't want it to.
No. Let me flesh out what I'm thinking in terms of that. If I need to create some preparation for board members to go out and be champions, engage partners, then that piece is done. And that is preparation for anybody to go out and do it, and not just board members. If the powerful thing is that 100 additional people with 100 different connections around the world are able to connect us with potential partners in their neck of the world, then I'm willing to wait an extra month if that is what we're able to do. I'm playing in my head. The only thing that just keeps playing is if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And that we have this opportunity to engage everybody in building the future of what they've committed themselves to with their time and their money and their heart and their spirit. And their practice, that they have the opportunity to get more deeply involved in making that a reality, I think is something that I'm not in any way interested in excluding. I see the power of that being way, way more than we have a plan by December 31st. And if it means one more additional conversation with a preparation guide that I've already created anyway because the board needs it, I don't see it as a drag. I see it as something that has huge potential, and that especially if there is, whether it's a video, whether it's a Google Hangout, whether it's whatever, created by board members asking the fellows to get involved. One of the things the fellows have individually said for a while is they would love to have the board be more engaged with them and with the work of the organization. And I think building that bridge, I think we have this opportunity to, as Justin said before, accomplish so very, very much in these very, very simple, it's why we always, basically what we're doing is we're sleuthing the fellows just like we would be sleuthing potential partners.
Fair enough. Fair enough on all of those points. You don't have to sell me anymore.
It's such a critical juncture in the flight, the taking off of this organization, that we only get to do this once.
Sure. Okay, so then let's be conscious and put into the resources that we need someone who will help to project manage all of that once it's done, once we've done that outreach. So, you know, let's get that in there realistically, that once the context and the framework is set and we share with people, then there's somebody juggling all of that stuff. As phone calls are coming in, you know, I've met this person, I want to talk to that person, who will do this with me, all that. I just want us to be really aware that that will be a new piece of work that we'll want to be working on and doing as best we can.
And that could easily be a role for our operations coordinator, because it is really a project management operations coordination thing.
Okay. All right, so I'm adding it to my list, staff time to manage the follow-up.
The sleuthing. The sleuthing and the follow-up, the appointments, all of that. That's going to be a huge task.
No, sorry, let me be clear. It's the follow-up from the sleuthing.
From the sleuthing, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not arranging the sleuthing. It's
right.
It's the relationship management once we've done it, and
yeah.
You know, 10 organizations, 10 funders say, oh yeah, that's really interesting to us.
Yes.
Now we're managing 10 relationships on the way to getting them in the room with us to do some planning work. I want to be sure that we're thinking clearly about how we deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you just said, don't put all the work on my plate.
Right, and also keeping in mind that, you know, there's not going to be 10 opportunities to do this in the future. This is the time to do this. So
sure.
It's very important that those relationships be managed wisely.
I love that. Yes, that's and you know, one of the very real realities is that you know, my travel starts to pick up again September, October.
Right. Yep. And we do want to talk about what we have the capacity to do well, rather than just
killing ourselves.
Well, and just because it was a good idea. Remember, I put in that post, you know, it's like zucchinis coming up on the vine. Every one of them needs to have something really great made with it. But doesn't mean we actually have pots that are big enough to make it all.
Exactly, yeah.
Zucchini relish. This is the zucchini relish phase of the work. So I'm hearing and I'm sensing that this conversation needs to continue to some extent in August, knowing as well that we've got a couple of very important administrative and operational topics to talk about too. So I think one of the things that I'm hearing is that I could take the time for a follow-up conversation with board members, especially those who aren't here today, in between meetings, so that I can urge them to watch this video, as well as to talk a little bit with them about the kinds of thinking that's going on at this moment related to planning. And the question number 5, you know, engaging them in what is it that we as leaders, as you as a leader, would like to be doing to ensure that this planning happens.
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even the two of us, Mr. Pollock, maybe we could both be phoning our colleagues just to bring them up to speed.
Possibility, certainly.
Right. We'll be plotting that on Wednesday night.
You guys are going to be together. I'm so jealous.
So where is the facilitation going to be?
And
where are we going? I honestly don't know.
It is going to be at the Pearl S. Buck International something in Perkasie, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. Justin, will you send that to me? I haven't actually received that yet.
I will.
Thank you.
I think between Gail and I, we're getting one clear message from Hannah.
Well, we're
great. It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I want as a moment of reflection, I want to share something that Annette said quite a while ago, but we were going at such a pace that I didn't want to interrupt. which is just in that she loves the question, what does the right plan make possible? And yeah, I love that too.
All right, so as you think back to over the course of this meeting and all the notes you have, what is standing out? What has inspired you? What questions do you are still on your mind?
Well, I have two things, which I guess are both on the engagement spectrum, which is I appreciate that we really identified something that needed to be brought back to the board to make a decision about, particularly what you were talking about, Hildy, of, I'm feeling how this all looks, what does it really mean, and being able to turn that back to the board and say, hey, here's the priority, now let's hold ourselves. I'm of the mindset, if you are going to abdicate, you darn well better be clear that you're doing it, and that you know what the repercussions of doing it are. Although sometimes it's delegating, sometimes it's abdicating. Hopefully we can delegate if that's what we need to do. There's a difference between those two. The other thing that just strikes me, which I think speaks to why this planning process in bringing people together and getting a clear sense of all the spinning pieces is so important, is, Friday when we were involved in the engagement conversation all around the fellows, that's probably why I thought what I thought about the fellows, is because that piece is so intimately connected to, well, here's governance work and strategy work that obviously has the opportunity to engage our fellows, that serves them, that would make them want to do it, because it's, not just altruistically beneficial, it's personally beneficial too. And so being able to see how, as we move forward, we keep those pieces kind of linked and mutually informative of each other is going to be critical.
Several things are standing out for me. I am inspired by our having a date and are talking so logistically rather than theoretically about planning, because for me it's always been a logistical thing, and I'm very, very excited about that. I am grateful to all of you for being a place where I can get out of my logistical head and where you guys remind me of that. And the we need to hire a staff person to get all this done. We may, but to first ask the questions that we ask, which are, what resources do we have? Now, what is the real job of that person? Sometimes, you need to be taken out of your own head, because we all do it, and we all get into what's on our desk. And so I'm deeply appreciative of that, of the reminder that again, it's the, if you want to go far, go together. And I guess lastly, the big thing for me is, I've been in the weeds about this. I've got a logistical plan of stuff that's got to get written, people I need to contact. But I've lived my life like that. I built 2 diaper banks like that, where it was way too late before I stepped back and said, holy shit, we just built something freaking awesome and didn't take a second to appreciate it while we were doing it. We did a ribbon cutting on the very, very first diaper bank, and it took us a month maybe to go, crap, do you know what we just did? We were not in the moment. We were looking at who's going to speak, how is that going to get done, where's the refreshments going to be, and
we had to keep the city council people separated because they would have had a quorum.
We thought so much about that we never took that moment, and to be able to say the words out loud, to write them down on a piece of paper, and I'm going to post it in front of me, that we are at a singular moment of takeoff of this thing. That was very a really emotional reminder for me, as somebody who's created a whole lot of stuff by just getting out there and doing it, and only realizing 10 years later, look at what we did. So thank you guys for that.
Mm-hmm. Candace, Dimitri, Deborah, reflections?
Annette and Susan as well.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know if they were still there.
I'm reflecting on the reminder that this process opens many doors, and that it's not finding a partner, it's engaging in this process. Opens many doors, and that it is that we don't know what's on the other side of those doors. But Justin, your 4-point thought there, that what it could make possible, it's a good reminder, because I get into the doing as well, and I don't step back enough to say, well, there's things that are possible here that aren't necessarily in my checklist, but they're amazing, and they could rewrite the checklist. I mean, one of the things that sleuthing did for us when we first started doing it years ago was it completely changed what our plan was, because we walked in with a plan. Oh, we knew it's going to be this, and as a result of those conversations,
is the diaper bank model that you guys all love.
And that was not
that wasn't our plan.
That wasn't our plan at all.
That came out of sleuthing.
So it's a good reminder, and I kind of reflect back, and thank you, Justin, for saying that in the way that you said it, because it made it clear again to me that there is much more here that's potential beyond just finding someone to have be a planning partner with us.
It's always the last 5 minutes, eh? Dimitri, that was such a great summary. Thank you so much for putting it that way. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think for me, as of late, I've just kind of been on this micro level of like, what do I have to do and what checklist do I have to make and stuff. So to be a part of this conversation where it's the macro level of where things are going or what's happening, kind of makes me reflect back of like, okay, all right, now I get it. It kind of like refocuses on what I'm doing. And one of the things too that I just thought of, and we had talked about, one of the micro things is just getting a list of like the fellows and like their location and their specialty, and how helpful would that be for what we just talked about today? To be able to send that up with updated information. So if George in Texas finds out that someone in Texas could do really good work with Caroline in Washington, he just has to look at that one spot to then transfer that relationship.
Wonderful.
Yes, and that came up on Friday, again, at the engagement conversation when somebody mentioned how valuable it would be to have a compendium, as you have developed in the past, Hildy, of who all the fellows are, where are they, what are they involved in with us, what sorts of things are they interested in, etc. So it's come up again, and Candace, that kind of a database would be so valuable.
Ricky.
Gail, I want to add to that the thought that came out of the recent blog post of, or not blog post, but the recent communication that we were talking about, that we have people who aren't officially fellows, whatever we're applying as a fellow, but are in spirit and are in action, and they really are part of that compendium. They're part of that list of people as well, because they're living it, even though they may not have yet taken the course.
Yeah. Speaking of the two people who are in the Twitter Hangout world, are there any reflections from them, from Susan?
Not yet. I've been checking, and nothing so far. Indications are that there's still a couple of people watching at this point. I'm hopeful it's them, and if they reflect, we will add it.
Beautiful.
Deb? Nothing?
Nothing. Well, mine is
Busy trying to figure it all out, write it all down.
yeah. Thank God for the recording. My reflection is the knowledge that it's that moment of realizing the partnership, the engagement, the idea of planning with somebody else is kind of like going shopping with them and realizing that you're not two different separate entities buying for two separate households, but you intend to figure out a way to learn about the opportunities together, no matter what you do as a result of it, you're going to do it together. And it's such a beautiful picture. It just changes everything about what it is we're actually doing.
Mhm.
All right.
That makes me think about, we went to Disney World earlier, and everybody shares their strategies of how to navigate Disney World. It's like, imagine we all came together and thought about what was the highest potential way to navigate Disney World.
Stay
and just
away
shared it out.
from Disney World.
Stay away from what? What did you say?
I said just the easiest way for me has always been to just stay away from Disney World.
Oh.
Yeah, well.
Justin, did you share your reflections? Did I miss something?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was how the engagement spectrum.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Is there anything that we want to ensure? I don't think we need to ask the blog question because there's going to be lots of blogging coming, and we're talking about conversations that will happen afterwards. I think the point is to engage. It's to encourage our fellow board members and fellows to have a look at this video, to get a sense of what the heck it is we're actually talking about, and maybe having a peek at it. I find it useful if somebody tells me at the 17-minute mark, here's a really important point, and I go there and listen to that, or at the whatever. That might be a helpful thing to offer to folks.
I was thinking about, as you're talking, as you mentioned that, I have been thinking about a way of potentially annotating them with minute marks on our page, on the YouTube page, so that if someone comes to it and they want to go right to the discussion on this or right to the discussion on that, they're not listening to 2 hours or 2 hours and whatever it is, X minutes of something. They're only listening to 10 minutes, which is what they would be interested in. And I'm pretty sure there's a way to do that that would allow people to go right to those points. And what I'm thinking about this is not for this conversation, but how do we incorporate this into our process so that those kinds of
After every meeting, those are posted.
Yeah.
Which is a question I think I would want to ask to. I know we have to have an official recorded document that is our minutes, but it's a question for Deborah and for Rebecca, which is rather than having to rehash verbatim what was said here. Is there some value in that being the work of the documentarian? I don't know.
Well, one of the things that was on our list of legal obligations that we wanted to talk about last July was what do we want from the minutes?
Yep.
And so, we have, I think with good reason, put those discussions on hold. We did great work so far, but I know that we'll come back to it.
Yep.
And Annette has said that she's still here and she's appreciating the process, but she was distracted by the wish that Parcasey, Pennsylvania was closer to Pittsburgh. Parcasey.
Absolutely.
And we get that next time.
We will be so close and yet so far.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well,
thank you, everyone.
This was good. I wish more of us were here.
Yeah.
But they will be as you have those conversations.
Yeah. We will regroup in a month, and hopefully everybody is healthy, wealthy, and wise in between.
Wonderful. Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
on Wednesday, Justin. Bye.